Welcome, everybody, to Dead Talk Live. I am your host, Viz, and tonight we have three very special guests. We have stars Mhairi, Calvey, Mike Beckingham, and director Paul Dudbridge from the upcoming film Fear the Invisible Man, which is coming to DVD and streaming on demand Tuesday, June 13th. Thank you guys for being our guests. Congratulations on this film. I really enjoyed it. I look forward to us sort of breaking it down a little bit and getting into the nitty-gritty today. And I want to start with Paul. Paul, you are the director. Fear the Invisible Man is set in 1897. As a director, what kind of challenges do you face not only doing a period piece, but a science fiction period piece?
Well, first of all, lovely to be here. Thanks for having me. Well, the challenge is, I think, well, first and foremost, it was always about story, just making sure that the story played and it was accurate to that, you know, in that regard. But a lot of the challenges were actually, you know, sort of just visuals, like making sure that, you know, everything was, you know, there was no light switches in the shots and cars and all that kind of stuff in the background and all that kind of thing. Just making sure that all that period detail was there. And then just sort of, you know, just working with the art department to make sure we had all the correct props for the period and things like that. So you got one eye on the story, but one eye on a lot of the visuals that, you know, in a contemporary film, you kind of take for granted. But actually on a period thing, it's like, what is over the actor's shoulder there? Can we see something new? Can we see a light switch? Can we see something that shouldn't be there? That prop that they're using, was that around at the time? Did we think it was around, but actually, you know, it wasn't? And we just have to do a little bit more research than you would do for a contemporary film. Yeah,
of course. Now, Mhairi, you play the widow Adeline, who has no shortage of suitors after her. Now, do you view Adeline as a naive character who wants to help the helpless, or do you see her as a strong woman who has been underestimated her whole life?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on the show.
Pleasure.
The character of Adeline is really layered, which is what I loved about her. She's very strong. She's a woman before her time, and she's incredibly independent. And she's just not able to express herself in any way. So, I mean, everything about that society at the time, women had no voice, they couldn't work, they couldn't express themselves. And she was someone who was highly academic, very determined, very passionate. So even the costume helped with all of that, because I was so suppressed in the corset and everything. It helped with the performance, but she was held back in every single way.
Yes, I totally agree. Now, Mike, you are the Invisible Man. I mean, wow, how cool is that?
I mean, you can see me now, right?
Yeah. We see you front and center. Now, as the Invisible Man, obviously you get limited screen time, okay? It's a lot of voiceover work. Did you approach playing this character the same way you would doing a voiceover character? What was your approach to playing Griffin?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And again, thanks so much for having us on, as the guys have said. Yeah, Griffin was different. I've done a character before of just a voice. He was a CGI character in another movie. But what was different was that I was on set reading the lines in for the other actors. Whereas with this process, me and Paul shut ourselves away in a sound studio for I think 8 hours and did the whole movie in one day.
Wow.
And that was a completely different style of acting, of voice acting, a completely different approach to what I'd done before. And I found it really liberating. It was kind of, Paul is very much an actor's director. He allows you to play a little bit and which is fundamental when you're in that sort of environment. And he'll be like, you know, why don't you try it this way? And then I'll be like, try it this way. And then, you know, it was just such a fun experience. It was great and something completely new for me. So it was so enjoyable.
Now, your character, Griffin, is a narcissistic alpha male. I don't think many would argue with that once they see the film. Do you think he had good intentions in regard to science when he first started on this quest to creating invisibility, and then just became lustful of the power and was ultimately his downfall?
Yeah, I think some of the maybe worst ideas come from the best intentions. I think he certainly sets out with this idea. I mean, if you were the person that was able to create invisibility, you know, I never judge anyone unless I walk a mile in their shoes.
Yeah.
So you kind of think to yourself, if I was a creator of invisibility, and it grew and grew and grew, you know, where would I go with it? And it certainly brings that into question, I think, certainly for the audience, as to, you know, when you finish watching the movie, it's like, this guy, do we like him? Don't we? Did he do the right thing?
Yeah.
You know, it's a lot of questions that Griffin presents, for sure.
You know, like the real world, this world is very gray, very realistic, just like it is in the real world. Now, Paul, the movie's based off an H.G. Wells novel. That really comes through with the science fiction storytelling. How important was it to you to stay true to the novel?
Well, I think we had a great script by a writer, Philip Day, and it was based on the novel, but he tweaked it obviously a little bit, because in the novel, it's not Adeline, it's her husband who's actually in the house, and in this one we flipped it around, so Reginald, the husband, is dead, and it's Adeline who's in the house, and we've introduced this past relationship between Griffin and Adeline, so there's a little bit of a romantic undercurrent there. So it's kind of based on it, but then we've just adapted it slightly, just so it's not completely, you know, kind of a copy of the novel. There's a little bit of a slightly creative adaptation to it, and just turn it in, and having a female lead, obviously, just making it a little bit more different and bringing it up to date, which is really appealing to me. And when I first read it, it was one of those things where I was like, oh, please be good. I don't want to. I have to feel like I've got to do this, and my heart's not in it because the script isn't there, and the script was there.
Oh yeah.
It was a little, obviously, very ambitious, but I was really pleased with the structure and the dialogue and the story and the different layered characters, like Mike was saying earlier. You know, so I was pleased that it was a good script, really.
Mhairi, you know, we have to stand out your performance. You did a brilliant job as Adeline.
Oh, thank you.
I mean, it was a difficult role to pull off, and you did a fantastic job. Now, as an actor, in this movie, you had to work off of somebody that was not physically there, and that's extremely difficult to do. So how did you approach that challenge? You didn't really have anybody to work off of. How did Paul help you? Did you guys brainstorm on some ideas to make it more authentic for you? Tell us about it.
Well, I mean, I did about a month of prep before the actual shoot, because I was cast really early on, like before anybody else was cast at all. So I had loads of prep time, which definitely helped. But about a month before filming, I just learned the entire script. I mean, every single bit of dialogue. So when I walked onto the set, I knew the entire 90 pages by heart, which definitely helps when you're playing against, most of the time, no other actor.
Yeah.
We did have a stand-in, so anytime you see the Invisible Man moving something or wearing a cloak, there was a stand-in for Mike, but he was in a full green suit, so he did a fabulous job. Joe Trigger, he did an awesome
we've got to give
job.
Joe a shout out.
Yeah, definitely, because he was dressed in this bright green suit like a cucumber.
Gumby.
And it looked hilarious. So if I wasn't playing against that, which, you know, was quite funny the first time round, I was literally playing against nothing. So I kind of decided to do it like I was just doing a really big audition tape, because often with audition tapes you are acting against no one, or someone's reading lines in over the phone to you and stuff like that.
Awesome.
So I just approached it that way.
Now, Mike, like we said, the Invisible Man is a iconic character. When you booked the role and, you started to get serious as to how you were going to do this, tell us some of the ideas that ran through your mind on how you pictured your Invisible Man to be.
Yeah, it's a really good question. My take always on a character is how it first kind of comes to me when I read the script. So when I read him or read Griffin, it just formulates ideas within my head. I actually stay away from sort of source materials because I don't like to try and replicate or emulate any of the brilliant actors that have, like you say, stepped into those invisible shoes. Or the shoes aren't invisible, actually, just the legs. But yeah, so he kind of was there on the page for me, like Paul said, and with the script, it was there for me to just formulate and play with, and it was just a great experience. But it was quite funny because when we were in the sound studio, you're not going to believe just that basically 2 people did the whole visual effects on this film. It's insane, right? It blows my mind. But some of the visual effects scenes weren't finished when we were doing the voice for Griffin. So sometimes in the scenes, I would see Joe in his lime green onesie outfit. And so I would be doing my lines while seeing somebody playing the part of me. Whilst it was very kind of it was quite again, it was just such an interesting way of doing it and shooting it.
That's crazy. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go on.
No.
Mhairi, there is a very pivotal scene in the movie where Inspector Addy asks you, which side are you on? I think that's a pivotal moment for Adeline. In that moment, your character has to decide whether to continue supporting an old friend or do what's right. Now, would you say that is her moment of coming to the truth and really deciding on where she's going to go in regards to Griffin?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one thing that I loved about all the scenes is that there's so much conflict for her. So I was constantly playing 2 emotions at the same time, which just makes it more interesting as an actor. But one of the things that I sort of thought about a lot during my sort of preparation was coercive abuse. And I felt very much like up until that point, she then breaks free. At that point, that's where she breaks free from the sort of coercive abuse that he's doing to her. And it's all very slowly happens throughout the film.
Yeah, and for me, at that moment, we see Adeline become a much more self-confident person, stronger, and she's ready to take on this problem, which is Griffin. Paul, Adeline is facing financial problems in the film. She's a widow. Her husband, Reginald, passed away. We don't get to see him in the movie. Her house is close to being foreclosed on. How important is it to the audience to understand the circumstances that Adeline is for us to really get a sense of her character?
Sorry, just say that. Oh, sorry, you're talking to me or Mhairi? Sorry.
Paul, sorry. My apologies. So, with Adeline going through all these financial problems, her house getting ready to be foreclosed on, and we really see that play out, how important is it for us, the audience, as we're watching this and we're seeing this character in Adeline develop, how important is it to see her financial problems in relation to the character that we're seeing unfold?
Well, I think it's really important because we start to get a sense of how she gets drawn into Griffin's plan, because Griffin's giving her the option of, because Griffin, a bit of a spoiler alert, but he robs the bank, as you would do if you were invisible. He robs the bank, and he's in a position to help Adeline out, and because there's a little bit of a connection between them anyway, she kind of slowly gets sort of drawn in, and you can see why she might want to sort of not turn a blind eye, but she kind of doesn't want to believe what's actually happening because it might help her out of her situation. And then, and that crutch point halfway through where she realizes, when Addie calls her on it and says, which side you're on, and she realizes that she has been manipulated and she has been kind of, perhaps because of some old feelings, that she had for him, that she's been kind of, wanting to believe that he's a good guy and that there could be a good solution for both of them in it. And obviously it's gone too far by that point.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, Mike, can a person like Griffin ever put his true love, Adeline, before his own needs and ambitions, or is his narcissistic side just will always prevent him to ever doing that?
I think that's sort of, in a way, what the film asks, I guess, you as the audience, which way would you go? And I don't want to give too much away in regards to the movie. But it's a really good question, because I feel like when you're sat there, again, you're thinking, would I do what he's doing? And is he doing it? What has his intentions changed from this incredible creation to then being in love, or so that is certainly a question I hope that by the end of the movie the audience will be asking themselves, would I have done the same thing? And that's what I feel is wonderful about this particular take on the characters. I feel that he is relatable in that regard. And like I say, we've all set out with great intentions, and sometimes they change and sometimes they don't, and you kind of just go with it,
Mhairi, I found myself as I was watching this movie, like putting myself in Adeline's position and saying, okay, this is what I would tell Griffin. I will help you as long as you use this power for good. Okay? I don't think she maybe fully understands that she does have some kind of power over Griffin. Do you think she just doesn't understand that he still loves her, that he has feelings for her? Do you think she just doesn't get that?
No, I think she does. I think it's more of a lust, though, that he has for her. That maybe originally they had a romance and that it was love, but at this point during a lot of the film, especially more towards the end of it, it's more of a lustful thing.